They shoot the shit. They shoot the shit. Shoot, 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 shit, shit, shit. Shooting the shit with Chippa.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Shooting the Shit with Chippa. Another awesome guest, a guest you've heard before. This is now my third time with Andy Rodriguez. Without further ado, I'll just let Andy reintroduce himself to you guys.
Hi everyone, it's Andy Rodriguez here for my third time on Shooting the Shit with Chippa. Been here before to basically just kind of redo my old college radio show, spoiler alert, which is a lot of fun to do. And most of the time you can catch me on Twitter, where I am mostly just giving hot takes and or just spitballing things.
Absolutely, and being all around awesome. Like
Oh, much
we
appreciated.
we have found this awesome niche through this show and through followers of. We found the good part of Twitter. I don't know what happened, but you know, uh, I rarely run into I mean, I hear negative things, but I rarely run into negative confrontations on there. So I feel pretty good about that so far.
I think you just like kind of found like a nice little group of like very amicable movie nerds
Yeah,
and lucked out with that.
yeah, I got very lucky. Because I mean, even within the people that I know that disagree with me, like I can drop that I liked The Last Jedi without getting doxxed. you,
Yeah,
you
I
know
mean
what
that's
I
pretty
mean?
nice. I run in a group that generally just likes The Last Jedi.
Me too.
So that's just kind of nice just to be like, "Oh yeah, like I don't live in like some weird parallel universe where people hate this movie."
Right. I don't like that parallel universe. That makes me very angry. Um,
It's very strange because I walked out of that movie being like, "That was awesome,"
well,
and then I checked the internet and I was like,
yeah, it
"What?"
was a two-part thing because I walked out going, that was awesome, and I can't wait to talk to everybody because everybody must think this is awesome.
Yes, no, that was my exact reaction. Like, I walked out of the movie theater and I was like me and my friend, we both watched it like opening weekend and we were like, "Yeah, that was awesome. Like, that was really cool." And then like I go on the internet and some people are like, "Hell yeah, The Last Jedi," and other people are like, "Fuck The Last Jedi," and I'm like, "What the hell is happening?"
Yeah, it was very very weird. So we'll start off by playing right quote wrong movie, which you are now only the third person who's got to play it with the real deck. Haha. Um,
Exciting.
I mean,
So,
there were a bunch of people at the Talkbuster live show, but you're the third person on this show that's gotten to play
ooh,
with the real deck, which is cool. But I'll do a tiny bit of housekeeping. I like to thank my $15 or more patrons by name: Mason, Christopher Finnick, Patricia Chipman, hi mom, and QK Campbell Jr. And welcome my new patrons: Alex Shaw, Andres Rodriguez, and Skullface. So there
oh,
we go.
nice,
So I,
nice.
I think you're one of my new ones within the last 2 months.
Yeah, yeah, I
I,
became a patron of yours. I don't remember exactly when, um, but I kind of just got on board with like I need to start like actually putting some money
no,
to
I
the.
appreciate it big
Yeah,
time, and I saw it come up, and I'm like, man, I hadn't recorded one of these. I think you may have been that beginning of July may have been like the last recording I did before the live Talkbuster show. I had like months of backlog, so
right.
so I updated this list, and I'm like, oh wow, when did he become a patron? I should have recognized this.
I think that was maybe July. I think July was when I became a patron.
Well, it was awesome either way, and I really appreciate it.
Hey
So,
man, you're doing good stuff, so I feel like you deserve that couple bucks, you know?
all right. So since this show is really just my excuse to hang out with friends that I hopefully will get the chance to meet someday. Let's play some right quote wrong movie. You remember how it's played, good sir?
More or less Cards Against Humanity, but actually fun.
Oh wow, yeah. There you go. That actually I really appreciate that. Yeah, for those listening for the first time, it is very similar to Cards Against Humanity. We pull the name of a movie, which would be the equivalent of a black card in Cards Against Humanity, and we each have a hand, now officially have a hand of 10 cards to pick from, with movie quotes that do not come from that film, and we try to fit those quotes into the movie that we draw in a funny, ironic, or silly way. And that's about it. It's a blast. To let you know, Andy, I've play tested this with some friends and gotten some good feedback about how to make it. I won't. I hate using the word user friendly. It's more like more approachable by, because a friend of mine doesn't do horror movies, so they were like, Chris, you have a shitload of horror movies in this, and I just don't know what any of these movies are. But what a lot of people do know are iconic names of characters and quotes or like synopses. So they're like, why don't you put like a one sentence synopsis on the blue card with the movie title and put a couple
Okay.
character names, because a lot of people know Pennywise, for example, but might
Right.
not remember that that's from It. Or a lot of people know Hannibal Lecter, but might not remember that's from Silence of the Lambs. And I'm like, oh, that's
Right.
a really
Right.
good point. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's coming down the pike, but I, obviously
Okay.
haven't
Cool.
updated it
Cool.
yet.
Cool. Cool.
So
Cool.
again, that's so any feedback and any quotes that you can think of, I'm always looking, and that goes for people listening. You can now email me at the Chippa made this. That's the CHIPPA made this at gmail.com. And I would love to hear quotes and things to add to this game or feedback. So are you ready, good sir?
Okay. Yeah. Are the cards that you sent me on Twitter my hand for the game?
They are your hand, yes. And I
Okay.
I laid them out, took a snapshot, and put them away, so I do not know what they are at this point.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Yeah.
All
I'm
right?
just taking a quick look at my
Yeah,
hand here.
of course.
Uh. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. All right. I think I'm ready.
Is your hand acceptable, sir?
It looks pretty solid.
Okay. Our first movie is Police Academy 2, Their First Assignment.
I have actually never seen a Police Academy movie.
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting here going, how did that one end up in here? It must be because I have a good quote from it. So I'm actually going to skip by that because it's no fun if both of us haven't seen it. Haha.
Oh, neither of us have
Oh,
seen it?
although I've seen the first Police Academy. Oh no, I've seen the second one. That's the one that Bobcat Goldthwait's in. Um.
Okay.
Anyway, let's pull another one. Haha. Day of the Dead. There we go.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
And you can go first.
Huh. All right, I'm gonna go with the fact that I'm not Instagramming this right now is insane. Day of the Dead.
Have you seen Jumanji, the new one, by the way?
Yes, yes, I have.
That's one of my favorite lines from that movie. Um I'd say I'm a pretty darn good father. My father tried to eat me. I don't remember trying to eat Timmy. Day of the Dead.
I gotta go with yours.
Yeah, and it's from Fido, so that's almost a lob ball. I don't know if you've seen Fido,
No, I
but
haven't.
Fido's like a low budget ish Night of the Living Dead type film, where the people keep zombies like pets.
Okay. All right, you lucked out with that one.
Yeah, I
Nice.
definitely did. All right,
Solid
next.
pull.
So one to me. Ooh, Alien.
Okay. Let's see. Oh man, I'm trying to think.
Oh, this is mean. I might use this one.
Uh, you might take this round. I'm not sure if I have a good one for this. Let's see. Okay, what's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils. Alien, Predator.
Nice. I actually have two quotes from Predator in here. Um, so I had a few, and some of them are just downright mean, so I'm not going to use them. And not
All
not
right.
mean to you, but mean to characters in the movie that isn't funny, but it's kind of ironic. But I don't know. I could just see this being a fun a fun crossover. Help is on the way, dear. With Robin Williams as Mrs. Doubtfire for some reason is Ripley running through is the best I can do there.
Just looking for that damn cat.
Yes, exactly. And that's all I get for that one.
All right. Yeah, I struggled a bit with that one. I didn't really have like a good one for a horror movie there, so
Right. I think
ah,
neither of us get that one. Let's see. All right. So we'll do two more then cuz this is fun. All right.
okay.
Nope, not that one cuz that one I can't read for some reason. Four Rooms. Have you ever seen Four Rooms?
No, I haven't.
That is a Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez anthology film. It's weird.
Interesting.
Yes, it's good, but
I'm trying to remember what was their was Dusk Till Dawn their other big collaboration? Was it
yeah, from Dusk Till
Grindhouse?
Dawn and Grindhouse. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Independence Day.
All right. Independence Day. We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Perfect. Oh, that's it, honey. I quit. This job is just past the point of no return. That's actually from the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back deleted scene where Jay propositions a woman of the night
Oh,
to do something incredibly fucking weird that he improvs on the spot, and that's her reaction.
nice.
I could just see Will Smith saying this for some reason in Independence Day. I think you get that one.
All right, I'll take that one.
All right, and so let's see. I'm gonna cut this deck.
I
See
just
if I can.
realized I have two Forrest Gump quotes.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, and a Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back.
Oh man. Hey, Jumanji, welcome to the jungle.
All right. Well, I already used that quote, so we're good. All right.
I'm gonna go meta with mine.
Okay, go for it.
I'm gonna go with um weird Jack Black meta-ness because he was in the remake of the movie that this was a quote from. Oh no, it wasn't airplanes. It was beauty killed the beast. King Kong. Jumanji, welcome to the jungle.
All right. All right. I'll go with market research says people love monkeys.
You totally get that one. I love this monkey. See? Freaking Wes Craven. Wonderful Wes Craven cameo in Jay and
Oh
Silent
man,
Bob Strike Back. Do you remember? Have you seen that movie?
I've seen it, but it's been a while since I've seen it.
So
What was his part in it?
they're filming a Scream film on the Miramax lot, and Jay
Okay.
and Silent Bob bust into it, and the Scream guys chasing Sydney around, and she goes and rips the mask off, and it's a monkey.
Oh
And
yeah.
Wes Craven's like, market research says that people love monkeys. This is fantastic. You get that one. All right, one more just for fun.
Okay, one more.
Just because I love this game so much, and I carry this deck around with me everywhere now. The Hangover.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you're really doing it, aren't you? You're shitting in the street.
Damn it all! I love that freaking quote. I have from Police Academy 2, nonetheless. You have the right to remain silent, the right to a court-appointed attorney. You have the right to sing the blues. You have the right to cable TV. You have the right to sublet. The Hangover. I think yours still wins it. All right, you're doing it. You're really shitting in the street. All right, so that's right quote wrong movie for the. Is that the third time you've played that with me, or did it not exist the first time you were on?
No, we played it every time.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Do you still enjoy it? Has it run its course?
It's fun. It's still fun.
Awesome.
I think as long as there's, new quotes and new things and we're not just repeating the same stuff over and over again.
Right, and we didn't repeat, right? I went back through our old thing just to be sure, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we haven't gotten any of like the same quotes.
good. Awesome. All right, well then let's go into it, sir. As before, we're back to your old college radio show, spoiler alert. So give us an introduction and let's start down this rabbit hole.
All right, so starting from the top. Hello there, this is Andy Rodriguez, and welcome back to Spoiler Alert, where we talk about topics relating to pop culture in general and what those things, well, why do they matter? Why are they important? And today, my guest is once again Chris Chipman. So, how are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic. I am pissing off the entire country by drinking a beer themed around Tom Brady.
Oh, fantastic. Luckily, I don't care that much about football, so you're good.
Yes, it's anytime I post photos of anything like this, it gets people really angry. It cracks me up. The beer is called the GOAT, or the greatest of all time. It's actually pretty good. How
Yeah,
what
it's a
the
lager, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a hella lager, so it's like a kind of like a almost like German or like trying to think like Bavarian kind of thing going on. It's really good.
Okay, yeah, I'm drinking tonight Mexican honey light lager from Indeed Brewing Company.
Is it great?
Wh-
The
It's
beer?
the beer is pretty good. What is it? It's 5.2%. It's
Yeah, so
pretty
it's easy going.
Yeah, it's pretty light drinking. It's pretty tasty. Definitely a summer beer, although summer has already run its course up here in Minnesota. So
Yeah,
it's just
same
slightly
here.
out of season now, but it still tastes good.
So this beer is made by Bentwater, which is a newer brewery in my hometown where I live right now in Lynn, Massachusetts. And
Okay.
the gag with the name is that Lynn actually has, and this is going to sound strange because Lynn has a, if you were around here, Lynn has a pretty bad reputation as far as cities go for crime and
Yeah, I think you've
poverty, and
mentioned it.
nonetheless, but we have some of the best water in the state.
Interesting.
We have several natural spring reservoirs, and in like the early mid 90s, they put in like a state of the art water treatment facility. And so I remember my dad when I was younger saying, like you'd bring your pool water to get tested, and they'd be like, "Wow, like you're taking this right off the tap, like this shit's great." And so the folks at Bentwater, that's how they came up with their name, because they wanted to do a brewery. So they went to find out, what do we got to do to the water, and they were basically just taking it as is, man. It's perfect. And so they
Nice.
were like, "Well, that's weird." So they worked that into the title.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, I remember when I lived in St. Louis for a while, it was a thing where like St. Louis water was considered really good, but not because, the river water was particularly great, but because Anheuser-Busch subsidized like water treatment all across the city.
Of course they did.
Yeah, because well, they need a shit ton of water for their brewery. Um, so it ended up just being a thing where St. Louisans were like, "Yeah, we have really good water," um, which is not, really anything to do with the geographic area. It's just because a very large mega corporation cleans it.
Yeah.
Because I think it was Mark Twain, like famously said, like you could get a cup of our river water and stick a spoon in it, and it would stand upright.
Ha! Yes. The
So
sludge, the
Missouri
sludge
water has
rivers of Missouri.
Missouri water has come a long way.
That's fantastic. All right, so yes, sorry for that little aside, but let's topic it up, good sir. I'm happy to be here.
All right, all right. Got my list of my big old Google Doc of topics, and I'm just gonna take a look at it. Let's
Topic roulette. Let's go.
let's see. I'm just gonna just take a look at this here. Let's see. I should have marked the ones that we already talked about previously.
Oh,
Oh,
it'll come to us, or we can just talk about it again.
yeah. I
No one will
mean,
care.
they're evergreen. Let's see. I got a topic here. Let's see. Superman hits hardest when you need him most.
Oh,
Uh, Other things,
Oh.
let's see, Western superhero comics, weird distance from anime and manga,
Oh.
symmetrical shots in prestige television.
Whoa. This is right up my alley.
Let's see, why did podcasts become the home of true crime? I mean, the easy answer would be Serial, but I'm sure that there's a more in-depth conversation there.
Yeah, I feel like we should put a pin in that one, and I should listen to some true crime podcasts.
Yeah, because there's like a million of them. So, like, why did podcasts become the home for true crime? And I have my ideas about it, but
Yeah,
it,
that's a fascinating one. That could be like a whole show,
yeah.
like right there. Oh my god, that's a good one. So let's go back to the Superman one for a minute. I know I talk about Superman a lot, but you said Superman always hits hardest when you need him.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so what was the impetus for the actual name for that topic?
So I was thinking about that, and I mean, thinking about when Superman has always been the most, I guess, relevant culturally. And
Ah,
yeah, because, I think at this point we all know that, Superman was created by two Jewish kids in the middle of like the Great Depression.
yep,
And, originally Superman wasn't fighting like big supervillains, he was fighting like landlords and mobsters and stuff.
yep.
Um, and it got me thinking about like what were, the points throughout like the 20th and 21st century in which Superman has been the most relevant. And, when you think about it, it was mostly, he was pretty strong from like the 30s through the end of World War II. Then, like, the Superman radio shows were hummed along pretty well through the 50s. Um, then the 60s, just kind of in general, the Silver Age was starting
Right.
up. And in general, that was a pretty big boom time for both Marvel and DC. Um, but I wouldn't like specifically describe that as like a massive time for Superman. But then you get to the 70s and the late 70s, and that's when Superman the movie comes out. And I think it's pretty fair to say that people were very jaded in the 70s. Uh,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They and that's the really interesting part is, it's fairly obvious why a character like Captain America takes on people from different walks, right? Because you get Captain America can be equally loved by a hardcore, militaristic, conservative, like military minded person, and
right,
a very liberal person. That he can embody what you want him to embody. You know what I
right,
mean? But it's interesting to me that Superman always seems to come into play, like you just mentioned, the hardest when people are jaded, when they have to look to something alien to be the ideal version of themselves
right.
rather
Like,
than another like them. And it's interesting that Superman, and I guess that makes a lot of sense to why the post 9/11 imagery is both so jarring yet still feels so comfortable with Superman, because it's still that kind of like, okay, Superman's kind of broken now. We're kind of broken now, so we're looking away from ourselves.
right,
Do you know what I
right.
mean? For an ideal. I'm really surprised, and this is a weird thing that this topic's going in this direction in my mind, but like we've had Superman Red Sun, which is the idea of like what if Superman became the Russian ideal instead of the
Yeah,
American
yeah,
ideal, which is cool, but I'm really surprised that throughout all the wartime, like you see World War II and even up into the 70s, excuse me, and even in nowadays, that whereas Captain America gets pushed hard in militaristic times, I'm surprised that Superman has never become like the, well, wait a minute, the ideal human is that pushing more into like the Aryan thing, and now all of a sudden is that something bad? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I've never really seen them do that.
As in like ever like seeing like that take on it, because I know like
Yeah, like
DC has done the Earth X thing where
that's
like
true.
right
That's true.
where they had the whole like, oh, what if the Nazi like Superman landed in Nazi Germany, I think
I
was the
forgot about
story.
that one. Yep.
Yeah, and that was a bit of nasty work. But it made for a
I'm
pretty decent crossover.
yeah,
Uh
I'm just surprised that's never been like the undertone of the portion of the public that, like Spider-Man comics always have and Batman always has the, okay, well, there's people that accept this person because they're helping, but then there's always the side that's like, no, a person that does stuff like that inherently is either a criminal or they're bad. And I'm surprised in like the good Superman comics there's never been, and I mean, the comics where Superman's supposed to be a good guy on the good side, landed like the
oh, like he
regular
has like
canon, where there isn't
what he
like,
has like bad fans or like
yeah, like
or
fans that
people
like,
misconstrue him in a negative way.
yeah, where he gets like, just a straight up fascist following. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think that that could be an interesting take. I'm pretty sure that there are some people who like just wince at that because, in the post Zack Snyder take of Superman, people just don't want anything, approaching like
Edgelordy
it,
Superman.
edgelordy Superman. People are a little concerned about that. But I think the idea of like, oh, like, what if somebody takes the wrong lessons from Superman within the world of DC could be interesting. I think what was it? What was that story? What's so funny about Truth, Justice, in the American Way?
Yep.
Where he fights the knockoff authority. I can't remember what they're called within DC.
Yeah,
Uh,
I forget, but yep.
yeah, that was it's a really good story. Um, that's a pretty solid one. Um, but I think I'm just like trying to circle back around. But
No, of course. Just, yeah, that was the first thing that popped into my mind when you said it.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh, why is my brain going there? That's dark. Like,
yeah. But like circling back around, like I think we're pretty well primed right now for a version of Superman to really hit the public consciousness in a big hard way. Um, I think weirdly, like the fact that, Superman movie came out in 2013 when we weren't really feeling as, I guess, nervous as a society
right.
is maybe part of why Superman didn't really hit quite that strongly at that time. I think in general, Superman, I mean, I think in general, part of it is that Superman is a character that works best when he's not fighting a big, like, cataclysmic enemy. Um, I think in general, that's just not the most interesting way to tell Superman stories.
Superman works best when he's walking around trying to fit in.
Yeah, yeah, or when he's just helping people and
Yeah,
not necessarily like saving the universe.
I
I
agree.
right, like I mean there are definitely good stories where Superman saves the day. I mean, Death and Return of Superman is a pretty good story. But it's certainly not what I would consider one of the like if I were to recommend really good Superman stories to someone, I would go with All Star Superman or Superman for All Seasons before I would go with Death and Return.
Right. It seems that they're doing really good things with Superman in the animated stuff,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is cool. I've caught a few of those, and it's like, wow, you kind of know how to handle your character here. But but the fact that you bring that up in today's world, like right now, what do you and I think? Is it the Superman that the world like is ready for, or the Superman that you think people need? Do you know what I mean? Like what is I don't think I don't wholeheartedly dislike Zack Snyder's take on Superman. I just don't think they did anything with it. Like they set us
It
up
didn't
for
say a whole lot,
yeah,
is the thing.
they set us up for okay, cool, you gave us a Clark Kent origin story. Awesome. So in the next movie we're going to see Goody Two Shoes Clark Kent. And then they just went straight to, oh no, we're just going to keep the edgelord thing going on. And I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, damn it. Like I was really hoping you were going somewhere with this.
yeah,
So
like Clark Kent with angst should have been one movie.
yeah, yeah, and I'd be fine with it. You know what I mean? If because the Clark Kent that shows up at the Daily Planet at the end of Man of Steel looks and sounds like,
He's a new character.
Henry Cavill, though it looked like he was almost doing a nod to Christopher Reeves, and it's like cool.
Right.
He's kind of bubbly and silly, and I'm like, all right, this is great. This was an origin story. I like it. And nope, sorry. So, do you think do you think a legacy version of Superman is what shows up and potentially becomes huge in the public conscious, like the thing that hits hard right now in today's society, or do you think it's an altogether new iteration we haven't seen yet?
I think it depends on what. I think for most people, I think Superman matters when he is a presence that is doing active good. When he comes out in 1938, 38, I believe,
Yes. Yeah, that
because
sounds right.
last year was the 80th
Yeah,
anniversary, I
that
think.
sounds right.
Yeah, because Man of Steel came out on the 75th. Um, so with that, Superman instantly became relevant because he was fighting basically things that like just were immediately impacting people, landlords, robber barons, things like that. I think we're really posed right now for just maybe for this character to return to his roots as a character that basically advocates, social change, social justice. And I just said like a four-letter word for some people right there.
Oh, I
Uh,
think it's great. Yes, yes. Come at me, everyone. Come at
but
me and Andy. Let's do it.
yeah, but like, um, you know, Superman should always remain relevant by fighting injustice that we actively see in this world. I think in some ways, the whole idea of like, oh, DC is mythology, DC is characters who are gods trying to become people kind of gets in the way of what actually makes these characters relevant to people and what makes them impactful. And for a lot of people, it's they want to see somebody who's all powerful, just like freeing wrongly imprisoned people and things like that. I think that level of catharsis to see someone stand in the face of something that's so obviously wrong and say no is kind of what they want out of Superman.
I agree.
So, I think in that case, I don't know. In terms of movies, I don't know when we're going to see Superman again, to be honest. Um, I don't know if Henry Cavill has ever officially said that he's not in the movies anymore. I'm not sure if
He
that's
has. I believe he said he retired from the character.
okay in that case. And I know, like, there was those rumors for a bit that like they were eyeing Michael B. Jordan and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which I think would be an exciting take. Um, in general, how do I feel about it? I think it's not so much who the character is in terms of the actor playing them, or what it is in terms of like what continuity it's in. I think it's just what the portrayal of the character will be ultimately.
Right. I see like a weekly TV show where Superman is just spending the majority of his time on picket lines. You know what I mean? And stuff.
Honestly, yeah,
That's like
like
where my brain's going,
a-
or like in like marches. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I know that that's just pushing that four-letter word further, but that's really where he is in today's
No,
society.
absolutely. If you were to translate who that character was 81 years ago to today, that's basically the position he would be in. You know, he would probably be, in front of a Black Lives Matter march or in front of a protest of a prison camp. And
Right.
you could easily write stories where like, oh, Clark Kent is, you know, like they're reporting on a story and then, later on Superman intervenes when like the police are about to get violent with protesters and stuff like
Oh
that.
my God, I would love to see that one because you know someone out there is either going to or is trying to do that with Captain America somewhere, but
I'm sh-
it makes even more sense with Superman.
Absolutely, because Superman isn't tied into a government the
Right,
same way.
Superman is alien. Superman
Superman
is
is the Earth as
yeah,
much as he is American.
yeah, exactly. It's such a cool topic. And he's still my favorite superhero, and I agree.
Same, same.
It's the stories when you don't have the Neo from the Matrix problem that you get with Superman when you spend the whole time as Superman the all powerful fighting another all powerful, it's way less interesting.
Yeah, like I mean, occasionally those fights are like cool to read and cool to watch, but in the end, like those usually don't have nearly as much meaning or nearly as much impact. Like I'm trying to think of what my favorite Superman stories are, and almost none of them end in a fight, really. You know,
Right.
it's
Now
it.
you've heard that I guess the DC TV show universe is bringing Brandon Ruth in to be
Yeah,
Superman again, which
yeah,
I think is awesome,
they're bringing him back. Yeah,
which is very cool. I thought he was great. That movie's a bit of a mess, but I thought he was great.
yeah. No, he portrayed the character really well, and I think it's interesting that one of the most memorable things, like the two maybe most memorable shots or sequences in the movie are Superman lifting the falling plane and Superman taking a bullet to the eye
Oh,
and
the
not
bullet to the
react.
eye was so good.
Yeah. And when you think about it, like neither of those two moments are fights or action scenes.
No, they're tiny little self-contained things of saving people, like the bit in Iron Man 3. Was that Iron Man 3 or was that
When he
Civil
saves
War?
the
Yeah.
people from the plane falling out of the plane. Yeah, three.
It's just such a small little character moment, even though it's a big action sequence, and and that's the stuff I love about Superman, right? It's the equivalent of like, oh, I'm plugging a leak. You know
Yeah,
what I mean for him. When it really comes down to it, but it's like it means so much. And that's I think the big problem that a lot of people and that I ended up having with Man of Steel is that, you know, he's senselessly allowing people to get hurt in
right,
that movie instead of protecting everyone. But if that had been oh shit, like the next movie was Superman sitting down, watching news footage of what he did and like getting it, like an aha moment of oh no shit. Like I'm an empath. Like I didn't realize that. That's
right,
something I've learned. That's where I relate to these humans that I didn't know about. Like that's my purpose.
right,
And then all of a sudden we get a movie of Superman learning how to protect, and it's like oh
right.
like an entire montage movie, you know what I mean? And like oh I would love that of him, like fixing a broken Mount Rushmore, and it was like yeah, give me more of this. Woohoo.
Yeah, like just when you think about like what are Superman's most iconic poses, and it's usually him standing either arms crossed or his hands on his hips, and both of those poses are not like I'm going to fight you poses. Like when you think of Batman, you think of him like crouched on a gargoyle or like him posed with a batarang around to strike. But with Superman, it's always him like in these poses of like I can take it. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing you can throw at me that I can't take. And I think that says the difference between Superman and a lot of other superheroes is that he's not just the guy who can dish it, but he's the guy who can take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Wow. All right, so yeah, let's hit on another one because
Sure.
you
Oh,
pick this time. I just that one struck me as ooh, that's interesting.
yeah, yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Let's see. We we've kind of danced around one um that I've mentioned on a previous episode. Um why are nerds so precious about Watchmen?
Ooh.
You know, this
All
might
right.
end up being a very comics heavy episode.
All
Uh
right. All right. Yeah, yeah, I'll let you start on that one.
yeah, so like you know, this has kind of been a topic that's been circling in my mind since probably before Watchmen came out. The series, not like before the adaptation of Watchmen came out, but the before Watchmen comics.
Yep.
Um, and there's this way in which people talk about Watchmen and talk about it as this like unencroachable story. This this narrative in which like anytime you add something, you're taking it away from it, and this and that, and any
Right.
adaptation, any you know, additional series to it is just going to like further you know, stain the legacy of this story. And I'm having some difficulty reconciling that, um, you know, thinking of it as a work of literature. Um, I can understand people's issues with, you know, new stuff coming out about it on behalf of Alan Moore, because Alan Moore was definitely screwed on that deal
Yeah.
when it
Oh,
came to
yeah.
Watchmen. You know, if we're talking about, you know, for the sake of Alan Moore, like yes, like it's definitely fucked up what DC did. But in terms of like Watchmen as a story itself, it's very difficult for me to really get on the side of being anti news stories in the milieu of Watchmen.
No, yeah, I can definitely agree with that. It's it built a world, and when you build a world, I love seeing more stories created in a world. Um, and to me, there's nothing new you can do unless it retcons something that I love about the original work. There's nothing you can really do that's going to take away from it because I can just accept it as not existing. I think the hard part people have, and I'm just trying to deduce it because it's like, I found a lot of the changes with the Lord of the Rings to be a lot more palatable than my mind even goes to when I think about what could happen with this Watchmen TV show, for example.
Hmm.
Um, because the Lord of the Rings, like, what do I think visually when I think about the Lord of the Rings before the movies existed? I think of the Rankin Bass Hobbit, and I think of the Lord of the Rings stuff that Ralph Bakshi did, and those are iconic in and of themselves, but they're not singular. Tolkien still owns the singular work. You're right.
Hmm.
So everybody else is just adapting. But when you have a graphic novel that, like The Watchmen, that can be treated as a piece of literature, which I honestly believe it should be and can, because the
I mean,
writing and
yeah, like all
world building in that thing is insane. But
right. And
be
like if we're just approaching like this under the perspective of media analysis, we should treat all comic books
I
as
agree.
literature.
No, I
Yeah.
completely agree.
You know,
But
there's bad and good literature, but it's still literature.
right.
Um
But I think that's where the hard part for some people comes in with the Watchmen, because it's not singularly written word where you get to put all the images together in your head, and it's not singularly images where you have to fill in the subtext. It's both. And
Right. And
both
so
of
it's
the
always existed as this
right.
one thing.
And so both of those things are so married to each other, and it would be so lacking if you removed one, that
Right.
now people are attacking, when they adapt it, they're attacking both your given by the artist visual interpretation and given by the artist written interpretation. So it kind of transcends, like, books that get adapted are so hard to adapt. Like Stephen King is so hard to adapt because his books force you. They're written and they're forced to create a visual in your head. He gives you time to sit there and build. He
Right.
describes the color of the walls and the smell of the room. So
Right.
any
He's a very dense writer.
so he makes you own it. He makes you
Right.
own. He makes you take ownership. And Watchmen, you have to take ownership of it when you read it. So
Right.
adaptations for people feel like you're, I guess similar to what we said about The Last Jedi at the beginning. It forces you to get so ingrained in it that you feel like somebody's slighting you if they don't do it the way that your brain has it. And I guess that's why I think nerds, people are, it's so precious to them, because it's not just there for entertainment's sake. You know
Right.
what I mean? It becomes like it's such a game changer. But I also agree with your point that when you get down to it, it still leaves a world to be explored, and it leaves more stories to be told.
Right.
And
Right.
so why
And
and so why can't we allow that?
right. And as much as it being a piece of literature, once a literature has, entered the public consciousness, it's just eventually going to get to a point where people are going to find new permutations of it, is parrot is like Dante's Inferno less of a work because it's a permutation of biblical stories
Right?
and a growth upon them, or Paradise Lost for that matter. And no, they're not lesser for that. In the end, eventually things with impact will create new permutations from it, and that's what I'm thinking about with the new HBO Watchmen. For better or worse, however this show turns out, cautiously optimistic that it'll be good. I'm not, opposed to it existing like some people are because it'll besmirch Watchmen because in the end, I'm not taking Watchmen as a holy text. It's a very important work. It's a very good work. It's a classic. It legitimized comic books, at least in the U.S., for a lot of people, and it's very much about time for it to eventually, move on and to have its permutations. Whatever the quality of a Doomsday Clock is,
Right.
and what I've heard is the quality is not particularly great. Like, it's come to a point where, like, important stories are just gonna have new contributions added to them as people want to grow and evolve the work. It becomes a little questionable when those classics are owned by one major corporation. Um,
Yeah.
and a major corporation gets to dictate what is canon and what is not. But then, death of the author, readers can just ignore that. Um, but yeah, it just kind of comes down to, like, if we're going to, for me, it's if we're going to accept that these works are important and that they mean things to people, we have to accept that they'll mean things so much that people will want to create new additions to it and to recontextualize it and readapt it and spin things around and change them.
I agree. And another thought, I had while you were saying that is, another realization is that Watchmen, as important as it is as a comic book in and of itself, is also very important as a fourth wall breaking look in the mirror for comics as well. And I think sometimes people, when a thing takes on a meta narrative of itself, like for example a film like Cabin in the Woods, which is that movie is in and of itself a self-contained story, but what makes that movie so great is that it winks and nods and knows all of this other stuff about every other horror movie you've ever seen, and it wants to bring you in on the joke. A movie like Scream is a great horror movie in and of itself, but it's a takedown and a rethink and a shining a magnifying glass on the genre. And I think when people do that, and sometimes when the only takeaway that certain people get from it is that that's the only thing that's good about it, they
Hmm.
sometimes worry that if you're going to say like use a Watchmen story to shine a different self-aware light on comics but not the same self-aware light, that all of a sudden it's soiled or sullied by you doing it more than once. And I don't agree with that, but I could see people taking that approach. It's kind of like the same thing. Us folks say every time, an edgy R-rated superhero movie comes out. When The Dark Knight came out, it was like, oh, great, everything's going to have to be hyper realistic now. When Logan
Right.
comes out, it's like, okay, cool, all the X-Men movies are going to be freaking R-rated and sad and westerns. I think people are afraid, again, like you said, that this holy thing that's holy to them is going to be sullied by these other works. But I love that we live in a world where they're willing to take chances with all these different takes on stuff.
Right, right. Once again, it's if we are to say that these things are important, then we have to reconcile with the fact that people will want to do something with it then. If somebody loves something, they're probably not going to leave it alone if they love it that much.
Right.
If somebody is given the chance, they're given the keys and being like, that, amazing, incredibly important, impactful work that has influenced millions of people, you get the chance to add something new to that. You know, who like I mean, there are going to be people who say no because they're concerned about like, can I live up to that? But like, we just have to understand that there are going to be people who are excited and say yes. You know,
Ca-
um,
Case in point, have you watched the Dark Crystal show?
not yet. I haven't had the chance to.
Oh, then I'll leave that for a topic for the future. But let me tell you, something that I was afraid could never be harnessed again, and was actually very skeptical, just because Netflix is putting their hands in everything now, and they still continue to do great.
Right.
But it's just like, okay, a redo of a Jim Henson property that not everyone liked all that much anyway. This like weird high fantasy movie that he decided to make with all puppets is being done by the guy that directed Hulk and the Transporter.
Right.
And I have no basis of knowledge to think that any of these people. I mean, it's an art form that doesn't exist anymore. People don't do puppet movies anymore, you know.
Right.
So the confidence level was low. Everything from it looked great, but it is unabashedly incredible, you
Right.
know. And so who am I to judge a book by its cover? This Watchmen thing in any adaptation or new iteration of it. I mean, there's been others, right? It's not like the Zack Snyder movie I thought was great. And there's
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
like were so annoyed by silly little subtle things he changed in adapting it that they just couldn't handle the movie. And it's like that is one of the pinnacles of near perfect adaptations in my mind, for better or worse, warts and
Yeah.
all. Like some
Yeah,
of the stuff in that's like, oh yeah, that didn't really work all that well in retrospect in the comic, and you just kind of went for it, didn't you?
right,
You know?
right. Like he basically took the comic as storyboards.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, and
brilliant.
I'm not gonna say like it's an incredibly ambitious and impressive thing that Zack Snyder pulled off there. I guess we're gonna hit on Zack Snyder two times, but this time, come back on the positive side of things. Um, I think in general, um, maybe, I guess we maybe should have just a little more faith in the people who want to try and do something new with these big important works, because I feel like the type of person who's really excited to do that maybe just deserves a shot, I guess. But yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about it. You know and things that are important that matter to people are just gonna attract people who want to do new things with it. And why not? Why not? The original thing will always exist. Maybe not faith, but maybe just less pessimism. You know, Probably not cynicism, but pessimism, about people, trying to approach these big important works. I mean, in the end, like a lot of it is just, a company trying to make a buck. But within these companies there are creatives, and these creatives do want to try and make new things and tell new stories and convey new ideas. So I just, I do want to have faith that people that writers and artists out there are trying to make something new.
I agree. I agree. So let's I'm thinking maybe try to pull out one more topic.
Yeah,
Just because I'd like to get to bed at a decent dish hour, but I think we can do another 10, 15 and call it.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I picked the last one, so I'll just shoot out a couple
yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah. And that was
And
a good one. I
yeah, and you can just whatever you latch onto.
All right.
um so um let's see, this one is related to Alan Moore, so let's skip that. um let's see. What is fast food? What separates McDonald's you wait 3 minutes for with a cafe or diner you wait five? Let's see. Apple versus Android, Xbox versus PlayStation, PC versus Mac. What drives the war of corporate cult of personalities? Let's see.
That's a long episode, that one right
Yeah,
there.
Western superhero comics, weird distance from anime and manga, coming out and adolescence in queer narratives, symmetrical shots in prestige television. Can a bad tie-in kill a band? You can cry at baseball or any sport for that matter. Let's see. Can we why is it difficult to pin a cultural identity to the 90s? That was probably a more difficult question to answer 4 years ago. Maybe it's more solidified now. Um, let's see. Yeah, I don't know if just like any of those interest
No,
you
there's a
you
couple of
enough.
them. I think you know what is I'm going to go with the first one you said, just because that sounds like a fun topic. So what
The
is fast food?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is fast food? What separates a McDonald's that you wait 3 minutes at versus a cafe or diner you wait five?
Yeah. So I was actually having an interesting conversation the other day with a friend from work about exactly this, about how I hadn't really been until I had kids to like a McDonald's, Burger King, etc. in a long time.
Right.
And to me, the thing that separated them when I was, say, 17, 18, working at a Blockbuster was price. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in 15, 20 years, the price of a burger and fries at like a 99 hasn't really gone up that much. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? But the price at a McDonald's went from, like a 2 cheeseburger meal with fries was like $1.99 when I was 17. And
Right.
now a value meal at McDonald's is like $9.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and I can go to the 99 and get, you know, I would say, there's still a quickness to it. There's still, a level of lower quality than, like a steakhouse or something. But in my mind, that's a more quality ingredient, like actually cooked for me meal. And that's only a buck or two more.
Right, right. Like I went to college in a real tiny podunk town in northeast Missouri. So we had our fair share of chain fast food places. We had our McDonald's, our Burger King. We had a Wendy's. It closed after my freshman year. Um, and then we also had our fair share of like our local diners. And to be honest, like yeah, you could go and get to McDonald's and order off the value menu like a couple items for like $3 or so, or you could go hungover to the local diner and pay like $6.95 for a proper like eggs, bacon, and hash browns breakfast.
Right. That was actually cooked for you, like right
Right.
then.
Right, right, and because it was a tiny town, the prices weren't that high. Um,
Right.
and so I guess
So
is
is
it
it so is it a marketing term now more than an actual service?
right? Because like necessarily like if you're waiting like 3 minutes for your fast food to arrive versus like if a diner is relatively efficient, like they're gonna get your food out pretty quickly. You
Well, we
know,
have we have a, a it's a local chain, and there's only like four of them, but I wouldn't even call it a chain. They're just owned by a family around
right?
here. It's a place called the Brothers Deli,
Okay,
and you go in, and it's cafeteria style. So
right,
it's all short order cook stuff. So you go in, and probably for 5, 6, 7 bucks, you get like a home cooked meal, you
right.
know, and you're in and out of there quicker than you're in and out of there at a McDonald's at lunchtime.
Right, right. Like, I can't remember what the name of this place was in St. Louis. Um, Actually, Oprah briefly made a TV show about the place for her channel. But now the name escaped me. But it was they had it was a local place in St. Louis that had two locations. And it was also cafeteria style, and it was a lot of soul food. You could get your fried chicken and greens and stuff there, and it was all really good, and you got served really quickly because it's cafeteria style.
Right.
um, and that's a pretty much as fast as any other fast food place, other than the fact that you're waiting in a relatively long line because it's the church crowd.
Right.
um, but yeah, like, what is the difference? Is it a mindset? Are you being, because you walk into a McDonald's, your Burger King, your Wendy's, your Taco Bell, you're just put into a mindset that you're like, this food that I'm given here is almost more like just for efficiency, really, than I'm enjoying it. Because
Right. And I can accept that it tastes like it's lower quality because I took that was my trade-off for efficiency. But you
right,
can get I would even argue you can get a more efficient meal at some of these places if you go at like a peak time, you know?
right. Right, and it's almost like I think more than anything, you're probably being sold consistency more than maybe necessarily speed.
Well, that's where, a pizza place like Domino's, which I would say if you were going to categorize consistency as what makes it fast food, then Domino's for a delivery place is the fast food equivalent of like a pizza restaurant
Oh, it
because
absolutely is.
their whole thing is we guarantee you you're going to get it in a certain amount of time. We guarantee you it's going to taste exactly the same as it did the last time you had it. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right,
And
there's no inconsistency there. There's no Like their whole thing is that there's no margin for error.
Right. Where like, on a different end of it, you go to like a pretty good pizza place that's just staying on top of their lunch crowd, and their pizzas that are a higher quality than the Domino's are already made, and they can just give you a slice right then.
Right.
So, and that's a better slice of pizza. You
Right.
know what I mean? And it might even be cheaper. Like a lot of local mom and pops are less expensive than Domino's.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they're selling you deals. They're selling you efficiency, consistency, and deals. I mean, look at like barbecue, right? Barbecue, the whole point of barbecue, like slow roasted, long seared
Right.
stuff, is that you have to
Cooking a
have it.
brisket for like
Yeah,
12 plus hours. That,
but you
yeah.
but you have to have it ready before your customers are there. So there isn't a wait to get this food. The food's just there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I lived in Texas for 11 years. When you go to like a Rudy's or any barbecue place down there, none of that stuff is being cooked to order.
No.
Absolutely none of it is cooked to order. Like in a lot of barbecue places in Texas, like you order like your order of ribs and, pulled pork and stuff, and the guy like literally behind the cashier will just start sawing those ribs and stacking them in a platter for you.
Right.
Like, it and once again, like I think it's marketing and it's perception. It's consistency more than speed. So why do we call it fast food then?
Right. Right. It's efficient food, or it's
Consistent food.
expected food, consistent food. Yeah, it's what's the word? Settling food.
Right. Right. And like most of the time this fast food doesn't taste bad, because if it tasted bad, it
No, you
wouldn't
wouldn't
sell.
go. You wouldn't go. It tastes expected.
Right. Like there's just a certain level where like if you buy like the $1 McDonald's cheeseburger, it has the right ratio of ketchup and chopped up onions and pickles and hamburger patty and bun, that you're like, this tastes all right. I was fine paying $1 for this. It hits my brain right, fills my stomach to some extent,
Right.
and I can feel the chemicals going to my brain saying that that was all right.
Right. And then you go back because you want that feeling again, and don't want to take a risk of getting something worse.
Right, right. Like you can go to a barbecue place, like a local barbecue place, and some days, their food just might not be as good as others. Some days like maybe they didn't season the ribs quite the same way, or the brisket didn't come out quite as how you liked it as you did the previous time, or maybe that time it was better than
And
the previous time.
it's not even like it's moving away from being a question of quality, right? Because Taco Bell, for example, has always been known as using not very high quality ingredients, but a taco in and of itself, a beef taco, ground beef is not the highest quality beef in the world anyway. You're seasoning it, you're doing things to it to mask that. You know what I
Right,
mean? That's the whole point. Um, and then you get into, fast food restaurants getting into the, better for the world, or the niche market of wanting to attract a new client base. I've actually tried the Impossible Whopper that Burger
yeah,
King has, and I've actually tried an Impossible Burger at a Hard Rock Cafe. So like, in the, okay, we cook this like a burger, the gimmick to the Impossible Burger is that it tastes and has the texture, which that's the problem with most plant-based burgers, right? Is the texture, they
they're
can never
usually
get
too
get it right.
crumbly or
Yeah,
something. Yeah,
but this one, their whole point is, they even put like beet in there to like give it the red runny like blood
right.
type of thing. And I gotta say, it you could easily fool me if I didn't know that that's what I had ordered. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it was delicious. It was cooked right. So then I go, okay, what is an Impossible Whopper like? Because a Whopper, I don't want it to be that burger that I just got from that restaurant that is cooked medium and is juicy and gooey and messy. I want to be able to pick it up and eat it like a fast food burger. So have they
Right.
done a
Is it
good enough
consistent?
job of
Yeah.
making a product that can actually substitute what I expect from Burger King? And they nailed it. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? So you
Yeah.
have someone that like that's something that's coming out and kind of could be, hoity-toity sticking their nose in the air. Oh no, we don't want anything to do with a fast food restaurant because that's low quality food. But they just went right in and said, no, we can apply our high quality standard to exactly what you expect. And it's cool to see those two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right. And I
But
think the way you frame that is really interesting because how you framed it in the Hard Rock Cafe versus the Burger King one is that when you went to the Hard Rock Cafe, the what was the trial for the Impossible Burger was that it tasted like a beef burger, whereas when you went to Burger King was did it taste like a Whopper?
yep,
And I
exactly.
think that's a very interesting distinction between the two. Because one is trying to replicate, one, you went in looking for, is this replicating this specific, these flavor profiles, this texture and stuff, versus does this replicate the product?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's a really interesting distinction.
And that's what it is, right? Fast food, quote unquote,
Food is product.
is product food. It's
And I
marketing
mean,
food.
right, and food is always product in a restaurant, but it's product capital P
Right,
in
but
fast food.
a restaurant, a sit down meal is normally marketing to you that we're replicating something that you don't have the time or um you don't want to put in the effort, but you expect it to taste like you or someone put in the effort for you. Whereas
Right,
at a fast food place, no, 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 this is literally you don't have time and you also don't really have time to be eating.
right,
Like not only do you not have time to cook it, but you don't really have time to eat it. So
right. Like
just get here, eat
like
it, and move along.
the drive-through basically it gets to that point exactly. Like I don't know how much I mean, I visited Europe, so I do know that places there do have drive-throughs. Um but it's not quite as extensive as it is here with our many highways and such. Um it's just a very different thing, we just with a very busy culture, with a very workaholic culture in the US, I guess, it lends itself to desiring that need for consistence with a certain level of speed. Not necessarily the fastest thing in the world, but fast enough and consistent.
Right.
So it's interesting to think that fast food is maybe more brand than it necessarily is actual descriptor.
Well, right, because if you really had to knock it down to expedience, then any Asian food restaurant that is a delivery based venue is all fast food, right?
Right, like
But
any
but
place that
we
does takeout.
but we immediately hold them to a higher distinction from a quality standpoint
Right,
because one it normally has a restaurant attached to it, and two, you know, they kind of have a each one kind of has a distinction. Like they're supposed to be replicating a particular food type, not a brand. Whereas
right,
it's the the Olive Garden, for example, is a sit down restaurant, but the Olive Garden is a marketing thing. The Olive
right,
Garden is, you don't want Italian food, you want Olive Garden food. Like there's
right,
there's a big difference there,
right,
right?
right.
Red
When people
Lobster,
say they crave Italian, they mean like, oh, I'm craving my local Italian place.
right?
And not this. When you say you want Olive Garden, you want Olive Garden. You don't want to substitute that with another Italian place.
Exactly. So with that, I'm going to say do you have a final thought on this particular topic? Because I do have to get going.
For this topic, not exactly. I guess the only final thing I really want to do is the Sizzle Show,
Yes,
where we
yes,
just give a recommendation of something we've been enjoying recently.
yes.
And yeah, and then we can kind of sign off from there. So I don't know if you have anything that you really want to recommend right now, just
Well,
to send out into the world.
yeah, I will mirror the rest of the internet and just like I did to you earlier and tell everyone that the the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance is worth your time and could be one of the best, if not the best fantasy television show ever made. It rocks it for me. I absolutely loved it, and I want everybody to check it out. And also, there's a good crop because we're coming into October. There's a good crop of horror movies on Netflix right now, and I've been kind of knocking them out. Ones I wouldn't normally have watched, and I just recently watched The Invitation and The Last Exorcism, and The Invitation was great, and
Okay.
The Last Exorcism was a lot better than I expected it to be. It's kind of like a found footage. They made thousands of exorcism movies, but it has the intuition to end at the right point. I'll just leave it at that. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and so it leaves you in a really like, oh wow, all right, I like what they did there, kind of a thing. So
Okay.
those are my things.
All right. So I want to shout out a show. It's on HBO called Los Spookies,
Oh, I've heard
and
that's great.
yeah, yeah, and I just want to shout it out because it's like it's not a super discussed show right now, so I think it could use a little more love. But it's this very very weird idiosyncratic show. It's bilingual but like mostly Spanish. I would say the show is like 90% in Spanish and like 10% in English, but it's all subtitled. Um and it's very odd, and it has this very dry sense of humor. It would be like, how best I could describe it is like a Spanish language semi like magical realism Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh man,
Like the humor is super dry, the characters are really weird, and it's just like this very odd, very dryly humorous show, and it was produced by Fred Armisen, I think.
nice.
Um, and he plays a reoccurring character in the show, and it's just really, really different, really unique. It's not like a gut buster of a show, but it's definitely just like so different and so niche that I would recommend it to anybody who wants to just check out like a very uniquely specific kind of humor.
Awesome.
All right, man. Well, that's about it for tonight's episode of Spoiler Alert.
Oh man, that was awesome, Andy. Thank you for coming on and doing that, and we should start scheduling our next one.
All right, yeah, yeah, definitely. I love coming on here.
And it was a pleasure. I'm gonna go pass out. Thank you for shooting the shit with Chippa and drinking beers and running your old college radio show with me. And until next time, this has been Andy and Chris. We'll see you guys soon.
Good night.